So this class is going to review the DealerSocket Sales Manager Dashboard that most managers will probably spend 90% of their time in DealerSocket. So first, when you log in, as always, you're at the home screen. So just think about making money. We're at the dollar sign here. And this is where we have a couple of options that we can go through as sales managers to kind of track how we're doing, how to do daily checkouts with their staff to see how productive they performed, and how to get a 40,000 foot overview of how the dealership is performing, but also have the ability to go to one specific deal for that specific insight as to what's going on. So we've got a couple categories here. You'll see a total of 4. For certain dealerships, you might only see 3, so don't be alarmed because a desking tool is something that we pay extra for to have this feature. So I'm just going to go over these 3 features here. The first is checkout. So a brief overview. Checkout is a way for you to have a quick conversation with each of your sales staff at the end of the day to kind of go over their productivity. Now, you don't have to go into the day. You can do this once a week, once a month, however you want to do it. But I'm just going to briefly show you in a few minutes how this is done, and then you can determine for yourself whether you want to implement this in your process. Desk log here will show you a living and breathing desk log on a daily basis. So by default, it will go to today. I'll go in more details here in a few minutes. And then Scoreboard, which is very similar in a lot of ways to other features within the tool. But the Scoreboard is a nice quick way to see how the dealership's doing, how it's performing, and allows us to kind of jump in and out of a variety of interactive reports that, again, you may find useful. So the first thing I'll just start off with, I'll go to the desk log. So this is your living and breathing desk log. By default, at the very top, it goes to today's date, but we can toggle between these if we want to go to a previous day desk log to see how we did. So again, don't be surprised as the days progress, you start seeing a longer list of people coming to the dealership. So just for example of having more data on the screen, I'll go through a couple items. So here we see the visit times. We see the source, so fresh up, phone up, typically internet. Ad manager, this is where you can kind of put your fingerprints on the deal, right? So if a certain manager is actually working with a specific deal, we can actually hit the ad manager icon, basically put our name associated with the deal to kind of keep everyone on the same page, especially for those larger dealerships where you have multiple sales managers maybe working on a particular day. This is the customer, right? We see a variety of customers here. We see their statuses by hovering over these little bars. And we all know the importance of status. And this is where you can kind of assign different tasks, different phone calls to people if needed for follow-up. So let's say in the event that we had Diane and she left the dealership and said she was going to be right back, we can assign a phone call to the appropriate salesperson. So again, jumping over here, the assign to usually is going to be the primary assign. So we can assign a specific phone call, let's say to Ariel, to follow up to make sure that everything's okay and she's coming back. So this is where we can see vehicle of interest, whether there's a trade or not. Other things to kind of point out, the little home icon shows we have an address. So again, for Diane, we don't have a home address, so we can easily add these key pieces of data by clicking on their name. You'll see it open up a separate screen. And then as a manager, if you choose to, we can kind of fill out some additional data, especially if it's busy, just to kind of get the things updated. It'll take us directly into the deal. All right, just kind of keep that in mind. Typically, if a sales rep comes to the desk, you'll kind of spot check them to make sure all this information is already in there. But again, same thing for adding a vehicle of interest. Again, you see these little boxes. We can basically click this box, add a vehicle of interest, click this box, add a trade, and then here we'll show if we had an appointment. So again, you see typically it looks like a lot of walk-ins based off the source, based off there was no appointment, but we scroll down here and we did have a unconfirmed appointment set yesterday. So again, the desk log will show everyone that's scheduled to come into the store, who's presently at the store, and who's been to the store. So keep in mind, if you set up an appointment, even though they're physically not at the store just yet, you will see the appointments show up on these screens here. And these are kind of just, you can use this or not. This is basically the results. So if you kind of use different things to kind of give you a quick idea of where we stand with the deal, you can click this today's results, and it's kind of self-explanatory, but you can use these tools if you need to, especially if you kind of have this on a big screen and you kind of maybe at a distance and you kind of want to browse through, might find useful. This is where we can look at notes. So again, we can hit this work notes icon, which just take us directly into all the notes, but you also can read the notes this way as well. And you can add notes here as well. So basically kind of the same thing, but a little bit more in your face in this section. And these action buttons over here, again, if you don't have the desking tool, this will be grayed out or not even appearing on your screen. But this would be going to the desking tool. If you need to, you can basically push a deal to your DMS. This is where all your sales forms, so if you have forms you need to print out, you can go here. If you have a sales checklist set up, which some dealerships do, some dealerships don't, this is where you can check your sales checklists. This is, again, where you can add a task, and then this will tell you close dates, delivery dates that you can apply. So pretty self-explanatory, very easy tool to use. Play around with it. You're not going to break anything, so don't be afraid to kind of just explore. And then over here in the upper right are different filters. So we can go by franchises, different teams if we need to. And then you can also go whether you want to see all the appointments. If it has an appointment, yes. Has an appointment, no. Or who's currently in the store or not in the store. So going up to the upper left-hand side, I'm just going to go to today's date. So we got Ruth here. She has an unconfirmed 10:30 a.m. appointment, so she's on the desk log, okay? So again, just keep that in mind. It's going to show who's scheduled to come into the store, if there's an appointment set, if they're currently at the store, and then who's been to the store. So that's probably 3 things to kind of keep in mind. So let's say, for instance, just as an example, we had a customer that visited the store a couple of days ago. So kind of bear with me. I'm just going to pull a test customer. Or another example, if we have a customer at the sales rep, hey, this customer's in the store, but we don't see him on the desk log, but we want to see him on the desk log. So just bear in mind, if we have any new customer as a fresh up, it's going to get logged as a store visit. But bear in mind too, if we have a customer and we don't see him in the desk log, so I'm just going to add a quick customer very quickly. So I'm going to put this in a different source. I'm not going to log it as a fresh up, because if I do that, again, it's going to put them in the store immediately, because you're telling the system, hey, we got a fresh up. They're currently here. Makes sense. But I'm going to use this as an example. If we have this customer, and even if they've been to the store in the past, and we have them in the store visit status, it doesn't mean they're going to appear in a desk log for today. Very quick and easy tip. If you have that scenario with the sales rep, and I'm sure you probably have gone through this before, the easiest way to throw someone in the store, again, from a sales rep perspective, is go log a store visit. So to do that, you can select any status you want, but simply click and save. You'll get that little neurotic assistant asking what you want to do next. Again, for the sales rep, they don't have to do anything. Jumping back into the desk log. Boom. They're in there. So kind of keep that in mind, little tricks you can utilize to kind of get what you need out of the system, okay? So the checkout tab, very easy way to have a 30-second conversation or just kind of spot check your sales staff before they leave for the day. Now, I've seen some dealerships use this. They love it. Some dealerships don't use it as much, but I think if you can kind of see the value of what this provides, you can implement this in your daily process and get some value out of it. So at the very top, if you have multiple franchises, you can select from that. You can select specific teams. So by default, it shows all the teams. If you want to go to, let's say, your new car power team, they'll filter appropriately. And you can also change the time frame this month, this year, so it keeps track of basically how well everyone's doing. So these little marks here, red, yellow, green, you can set any criteria you want to judge whether they've not met expectations, meet expectations, or exceed expectations. So again, if you have someone that maybe didn't make all their calls, but they sold 3 cars, you can judge it however you want to judge it. This is just a quick grading sheet. It'll track for the entire month. And it also keeps track from the system about how many customers they received, how many store visits, how many appointments, how many sold. And again, also details on gross. But how to utilize this, we're just going to go to this sales rep here. We click on the name, and this will take us into what's called the daily checkout report. Now we can set any date we want, but by default, it always goes to today's date. So for this example, we don't have any data in there just yet. So again, we can run this report for an entire month. You can run it with the day prior. So just to get some data on the screen, I'm going to set it from the 1st of September to the 24th of September. I'm going to hit apply, run report, and then it'll give us some data. So let me try to go to somebody else where we can actually see some data. So we have a good example here. Again, this is the daily checkout report. We can kind of scroll through, and it might look like a lot of other reports you've seen before in the system. But right here, we got all the new prospects. Again, I set this for a larger date range, but this is how many prospects they have. So we can see 181 internet leads, 3 phone ups, 2 fresh ups. This is all interactive. So what's nice about this, all right, who's the 2 fresh ups this particular rep has upped? We click on it, and this will bring up the sales tracking report. So we see the 2 customers that they brought up. If we want to, we can click on these names. It'll take us directly into the actual deal if we need to change anything. So super convenient, all out of a report. We'll see this load up in just a second. Close it out. We can see the notes over here. So again, you're going to see a lot of the sales tracking report. Don't let it overwhelm you. It looks busier than what it really is, but just pay attention to these icons. If we want to view the notes, you can click this note tab to view notes. If we want to look at all the tasks performed, we can click this and show all the tasks that were either completed, that are still open, or are incomplete. And then we hit this little human icon that actually goes directly into the profile, all out of a report. This is a very useful report. Now, bear in mind, we can also manipulate this report to different statuses, to different people, different teams, different time frames. Whenever we make any change to these filters, hit refresh report, and it'll filter accordingly. Now, with all that being said, again, if I was going to all the internet prospects, I click on it, and what does it bring up? Sales tracking report, right? So all the system did is change the filter. So don't feel like you have to close out, jump in, jump out, click, excuse me, click there. You don't have to. So that's your new prospects. Here's all your appointments. So again, appointments, phone calls, emails, and text communication, all task-oriented, right? So how many appointments have we created? Who are these people? Click on it. Very similar to the sales tracking report. This is going to bring up what's called the activity summary report. It'll just take a second to load. Set a call quick audible. So instead of that, I actually just click the completed phone calls just to show you what the activity summary report looks like. Very similar to the sales tracking report. The icons are the same. They mean the same thing. This might be in a different location. So we can view notes here. Click on the customer's name. We can go directly in the deal. Again, we can see what's been completed, and we can change this information as needed. So we don't have to always close out, go here, go there. Again, it's pretty self-explanatory, but all these bars are completely interactive. So I encourage you, click, get lost, try to break the system, and we'll help you get you unstuck if you get lost. But always by default, if we ever get lost, we can always go home, right? So kind of keep that in mind. 2 key things to pay attention to. We got completed sales steps and sales pipeline. Bear in mind, yes, they look very similar. Completed sales steps is predicated on the date range that we set up here. So it tells us, all right, so this individual had 100 people we marked and contacted. Out of those people, we moved 11 out of those 100 into store visit, 5 out of those 11 to demo status. Now, you might say, well, how did we move 28? They could have bypassed the store visit and demos and probably marked the status straight to write-up. Or we could have been even negotiating over the phone and putting them into a write-up status. Now, bear in mind, this particular dealership has desking. So when they start desking a deal, the system by default puts them in a write-up status and bypasses these two statuses. So again, if you want to see all your pending F&I and sold deals, if you click all your pending F&I deals, it'll bring up the sales tracking report. So these little niches that we see here will show you the outcomes, right? So if you see a 2 or a 3, that means we marked them, in this case, contacted more than once. We marked this customer in F&I more than once, but we see this one mark here where they got sold. So keep in mind at the end of the month, you're trying to find low-hanging fruit. If you're doing the daily checkout with a particular sales rep, you can have those conversations to see, all right, who's all our write-up statuses that we have, who's all our F&I statuses, and are they sold yet? But I'll give you a quick trick that'll be even faster than this, all right? So this is where I'm going to transition to the sales pipeline. The sales pipeline means how many people in our system are currently in an unresolved status. They haven't been marked sold, and they haven't been marked lost either. So in this particular example, this sales rep has 139 people in unqualified status, 110 people in contacted, 1 person in demo, 34 in write-up, and 4 in pending F&I. If I'm a manager, I'm looking at either all 3 of these or definitely these 2 because there's no outcome just yet. A couple outcome options could be maybe it's a duplicate deal. Maybe we had sold the car, but something happened to where we kind of reconcile the deal. So there's a lot of explanations we can kind of do some research on. But, if I definitely have 4 people in F&I, you could also find out that maybe we just forgot to call these people come back. Maybe they had to get a cosigner. We don't know, but it allows you to see that low-hanging fruit. Again, on an individual level, you do have access to see this on a dealership level, but bear in mind the difference between completed sales steps and sales pipeline. So if you require your staff to complete all their activities before the end of the day, in this example, seeing 297 activities still to do, probably not what you want to see, but this is not uncommon either. And if you see stuff like this, contact your DealerSocket rep or even call into support. It's probably a campaign issue where it's generating too many tasks, or we just have to clean up some of the data. Because at the end of the day, this is an organizational tool, and we can configure the system based off your preferences to optimize efficiency and keep everyone organized. So look at it from that standpoint. I don't look at it from the standpoint they're not doing the job. I think in this example, they are doing the job. I think it's a fault of the system giving them too many tasks that they can't potentially keep up with. I'll also show you confirmed customers if you have CTI and how many people you've captured that are new customers via email, gathering that information. So I know that's a lot, but again, this is the daily checkout. If you just want to say, hey, I want to click on this person, see how many they've sold, how many visits they got, how many calls they made, whatever it is that you set as a criteria, you hit this. This will track for the month. So you have the ability to even go back in time to see how they did. So if you have performance metrics to give kind of some yearly incentive on performance, you can use that. If you don't want to use it, that's perfectly fine too. And the last thing I'll go over is what's called Scoreboard. This can give you a 40,000 foot view of the dealership very quickly. So this is on today's date. So right now we got 1 fresh up, 1 phone up, 5 internet leads. Here's your month to date. Here's basically showing you the sales steps. So remember, completed sales steps predicated on date range. This is for this month and today. So again, for this month, for this dealership, 371 store visits, 2 for today, right? Shows the sold vehicles for new and used, your sales appointments, and then if you have a service integration or a service scheduler, it'll show that, but most dealerships don't have that product. So who are these internet leads, or who are these people in pending F&I? Right now we got 211 customers in a pending F&I status, right? What was the outcome? Well, we'll just look at today's date. We'll click on the number 2. Again, what is this going to bring up? Any guesses? It's a sales tracking report whenever it decides to load. Here we go. So we got 2 people marked in F&I for today. We haven't seen them marked as sold. Probably still working the deal. But if we want to go to month to date, it might look a little different. And you do have the ability to add a sales pipeline widget to your home screen that will just focus on how many unsold deals are currently sitting in your entire CRM. Have been marked lost, have been marked sold. You can add that. I'll show you in 1 minute how to do that. But again, in this example, 211 customers marked in F&I, but we can see there was some kind of outcome for some of these customers. Like this individual didn't get marked sold or lost, as opposed to this individual did get marked sold. And then this individual didn't get marked sold, but got marked lost. So the last thing I'll show you is how can I see that information? Again, this is very quick, very easy. You can change the date if you need to. One last thing is you can customize this home screen to appear however you want it to appear. Bear in mind, you can go from the Sales Manager Dashboard, hit the drop down to Sales Manager Console. This will give you, by default, more Sales Manager-oriented widgets that you may find more useful. You can have everything on the screen that you want, or you can have one screen. But if you need to add something, and this is why I'm going to show you how to add the sales pipeline, because I think it's a very valuable widget to have. You go to the Add Widget button. You go to Sales, Sales Pipeline. Kind of looks like a pipe. Click it. And then if you need to, you can select the dealership you want. You can select the team you want if you want to, or you can just have Sales Pipeline. You hit Save. It's on there. All right. How many people we got F&I that hasn't been marked lost, hasn't been marked sold? 57. Who are these customers? Click on it. Guess what? Sales tracking report, right? You jump in the deal, jump in the profile, see what's been done from the person that's been assigned to this, right? We can see the person assigned. 2 key things to pay attention to. My last little bit of advice, the word age and the words update. Age shows you how old a deal is, right? Nothing wrong with having a 60-day-old deal. What's concerning is when it was updated last. So if we saw like 60 and the update was 2 days, that's a good thing. If we see the age is 60, and I'll show you here in a second, because you can actually hit these little icons at the top and it'll be a quick filter. So it's going from the youngest to oldest. We hit it again. This goes from the oldest to youngest. So again, if we saw something 72 and 37, that's not nearly as bad as 1,936 and has been updated in 1,936 days. So just bear in mind, if they're logging calls, if they're adding notes to any deal, if they do anything to the deal, this resets to 0 and starts counting all over again. And we see this last example, 50 days old, hasn't been updated in 50 days. That means they probably forgot to follow up. So kind of bear in mind what the information is telling you. So that's all I got. I appreciate everyone watching this. And as always, if you need anything, feel free to reach out.